Take a breath. Did you feel that tension just now? That's how your brain holds unprocessed memories, scattered, noisy, overwhelming. But what if we could take those jumbled clips in your mind and edit them into a story that you can actually understand and control? That's where eye movement integration actually comes in, EMI. And let me show you and explain to you today this remarkable process. It's going to help you regain clarity, balance, and of course, peace. Today's episode is literally the challenges facing first responders and how EMI can be used to balance and reset their mind. So, welcome to Voices of Victory. This is the show that we're going to dive into stories of resilience, stories of hope, transformation. So, let's talk about trauma and PTSD because it's a inner, quiet, silent, and you know what? First responders, they're no strangers to trauma. Whether it's paramedics arriving at the accident, firefighters facing the inferno, or police officers managing the critical incidents that they experience. Here's the deal. Studies reveal about 20% of paramedics and firefighters face PTSD, and police officers encounter 188 critical incidents over their entire career. Interesting. Unfortunately, this toll of this trauma remains hidden, silent. But guess what? It's manifesting itself as health struggles and tragically higher rates of suicide, more than line of duty deaths. We're going to hear my point of view, where I'm coming from. I have family and close friends that are first responders. So this is close. Well, let's talk about burnout and compassion fatigue. Oh, you have to have compassion. You have to have compassion, right? There comes a point where you must have self-compassion for yourself. That doesn't mean that we neglect the compassion of others, but our self-compassion is connected to our self-care, our mental health, and our well-being. And guess what? It starts with ourselves too. Burnout is increasing, and it's getting to be a big challenge across all responder roles. For emergency medical personnel to chronic understaffing, there's a compassion crisis going on. Many of them are turning to coping mechanisms like emotional suppression, substance use, further compounding their mental health challenges. So this segment is really featured data-backed insights of how compassion fatigue can impact responders and what needs to change in the workplace culture to actually better support them. So it's all about that support. Matter of fact, it bleeds right into sleep. And you know what? Sleep is crucial. The vicious cycle of sleep disruption. You have to think about it. You visualize something, you see something, you experience some kind of trauma, it becomes a memory. That memory has an emotional charge. It never gets processed. And guess what? You experience that when it's impacting sleep patterns, not only from the emotional memory charge that you experience, but also just from the job. So what happens when you need to be fully awake and operate with absolute clarity? It's so important to take good care of yourself. And these conditions, they impact cognitive performance, emotional regulation, and physical health. So I want to just discuss the science behind the feedback loop, because there's a feedback loop here. And here, understanding of it all. And I want to offer some practical ideas to break the cycle. The first point I want to make is that healing and emotional reintegration beyond just coping. Because most people say, oh, I cope. I just deal with it. Well, to heal from trauma of any kind, first responders must address that trauma actually is there, getting out of the Superman or Superwoman martyrdom mentality and understand that you're a human being. You need your downtime. You need to relax. You need to take care of yourself. You need to have mental health tools that are going to support you. So there is many promising interventions. And one of them is eye movement integration, EMI, unlike EMDR, which is an actual form of therapy. So if you need therapy, you can go to somebody who does EMDR. But EMI focuses on integrating suppressed memories into a cohesive emotional framework. It's fostering healing and growth. What I want to share with you is that you are literally going to be reconnecting with your emotions, and it's going to help you find that path to recovery, I want to give you an example. I'm going to give you an exact example. Like, how does eye movement integration, how does eye movement and the integration of things, how does that actually help you heal? Well, first off, let me give you an analogy. I'm going to give an analogy as if everybody was a layman. Imagine your brain is like video editing software, and a stressful memory and an experience that you had is an unfinished video project. Think of it that way. The footage is raw, chaotic, violent. Maybe there was blood. Maybe there's shaky moments, right? Jarring cuts from one image to another. You get a bit here, a piece there, a memory there, a thought there, a sound there, a sense of touch there, a smell there. Get all these little pieces. You tried to ignore it, but every time you open your little mental library, it's messy, keeps repeating itself. You get a traumatic memory that has an emotional charge behind it that often can interact and connect to physiology changes like sweat, heart palpitations, and so on. So that messy clip just keeps playing on repeat, and it stops you from getting a good night's sleep. So you feel stressed. So what does EMI do? What does eye movements do? When you do EMI, it's like opening up that video in the editor. And at first, it feels a little bit overwhelming because you're having to watch it all over again, because you have to face those chaotic sequences and those emotions actually bubble up and come to the surface. But just like editing, you're not watching to relieve the chaos. You're watching to understand and reprocess it. So it's like editing the footage. As you move your eyes, usually guided by somebody or guided by yourself, can be self-guided. It's like trimming, adjusting, and reordering, resequencing, and creating a different narrative, a different sense of understanding in regards to that quote unquote story. You start smoothing out the rough cuts. You add transitions. You make sense of everything. You realize that some parts of the footage aren't even as scary as they seem. You can make the pieces fit together in a more healthy way. Here comes the beauty of it. You get to adjust the story and the narrative. And that's where the creative part actually comes in. You reshape the story. What disorganized and overwhelming starts to flow more smooth and naturally. You don't delete the memory. Here's what happens. Let me explain it to you. You get the memory. The memory is that emotional charge. You use eye movements to help you process it all. What happens as a final result is that memory still exists. However, the emotional charge, so you're able to recall everything, and you're like, it doesn't bother me. I understand that it's there. I understand that it's there. I comprehend that it's there. It's there, but there's no emotional charge. So that memory becomes weaker, weaker, weaker. You don't change. You don't lose your identity. You don't lose who you are. You are still the same person. You're just simply processing what's going on. And that's the thing. So EMI is great to where there is downtime and you are a paramedic or EMS, and you need to literally reset yourself and emotionally regulate in the moment. That's where it's powerful. So guess what? This is literally taking that whole story, reworking it, and reprocessing it again. Now, the hard part is when you have to bring up that story again because you have to process it. But this time, it's going to be better. So you don't feel out of control. You edit the video, you edit the whole entire story. You create a new narrative and you close the software out. And you know what? You get to sleep at night. You actually get to sleep at night. That's the fun part. You don't have to go to bed with this memory in your mind. You edit the whole thing. You feel lighter. You feel more at peace. You know that memory is just not going to pop up randomly and just derail you anymore. And here's the good news. You can do EMI or EMDR for weeks. And after a few weeks, you may not even need it anymore because you'll hit a point where it's like, okay, I'm good. You could always return to maybe touch up any missing parts of the story. You could always do that, right? You could always return to that. No problem. But the road ahead is literally a healing one and should never be a burden. It requires change. It requires departments across the United States. They need to start implementing peer support groups, wellness units that are tailored to first responders because they have unique needs. They can't unsee certain things, but EMDR helps you process it to where you never have to see it again. That's the beauty of it. In states like New York and California, aiming and pushing to lead the way by mandating mental health resources. So we have these initiatives now, which are good. In closing thoughts, I just want to say first responders are literally the backbone of public safety, yet their burdens go unseen. And by shining a light on these challenges to spark some conversations that lead to some meaningful change in the world, we can ensure that the heroes not only save lives, but they're not left to struggle in silence. They're not left to retire early and forfeit their pension when they could actually have a life in their heart, in their mind, in their soul. So join us next time on Voices of Victory. We're going to continue to share some of these stories of hope, resilience, and transformation. We talk about self-esteem on this channel. We talk about leadership. We talk about confidence. And most of all, I talk about psychology as it relates, bringing your mind back to that state of mind where you can have peace in your heart. Take care. See you the next video.